Hello, it's Andrew again. Just wanted to catch up with the channel. About a week ago, I've uploaded the video from the Resilience 2030 committee meeting. We're still backlogged, but we should have this fixed by next week. So we've got some video from September. This particular event was on the 5th of September, just prior to the September Town Council meeting in Glastonbury Town Hall, and I just wanted to give some commentary and analysis of what went on and what the different viewpoints were really. I'm also new to the council events or the council meetings. I've only been going since around that time. I think that was the first time I went there, under the auspices of a council meeting anyway. So it's kind of interesting. How I found out about this committee meeting was a couple of days previous. I had some texts from different friends talking about the fact that there was this strange thing, committee meeting that kind of had a link to the Agenda 2030 kind of stuff, and I was concerned about what that might involve, at least from their viewpoint. So I thought I'd go along, and I was encouraged to book a speaking spot. So right at the beginning, that's what you'll see at the beginning. We didn't actually capture the first maybe 20 minutes of the event. So we've got video from the speaking, the couple of speeches from different people, and then the meeting probably goes on another hour beyond that, but we only caught about an hour's worth of material. So you haven't got the whole thing there. Now normally that wouldn't matter, because with the other official council meetings, those are filmed by the council, and if you don't see them on this site, you'll see them on Glastonbury Town Council YouTube channel or the Town Council website. So it's up to you how you access that stuff, but this was just an interesting meeting. We thought to film it at the very last minute, and then beyond that we came up with the conception of perhaps a channel to house video. Now it's a little bit of a grey area as to what video we use, because I've seen other council videos that have gone on YouTube under the auspices of private individuals or other type of YouTube setups. But for the moment we've chosen to just film with a handheld camera and upload them, and then in these commentaries you'll get timestamps as to what went on really. So if you don't want to watch the full meeting, you can just watch the commentary with the timestamps and check what was said back in the recordings that we're going to give to you. It's a bit of a tricky one, because we don't always stay till the end of the meetings. We don't cover the entire time of every meeting, so we'll just see how it goes. But anything interesting will be flagged up, and anything I think had a strong public response, negative or positive, I'll definitely flag up in all the commentaries I give. If I'm not able to give commentaries, hopefully we'll have somebody who can give commentaries as well. So really this is the first port of call, the commentary videos, if you just want a quick update on what's been going on at the town council. Like I say, this particular event I'm going to be speaking about is a little bit unique. So I was interested in just talking about slightly worrying environmental businesses, and I was using the example of lithium mining in Cornwall. A little bit of background for me is that I actually studied all of the climate change stuff around the time of the video in The Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore's kind of famous documentary promoting climate change. That was in 2007, and I was fairly on board with the whole idea for at least a couple of years, maybe 2.5 years. And around the same time I was a journalist in Korea, and so because I was enthusiastic about this topic, I would be peppering my journalism with articles on climate change and this kind of thing. But the more I researched, the more I found out that it just seemed to be a kind of a corporate way of making money, basically. And as soon as I started writing articles to that effect, my time on that magazine didn't last very long. So the climate change narrative has gone on for a long time, even before that movie, that documentary in 2007. We've had different names for what this environmental change might be. Initially it was global warming, as many of you might know, and then they changed it to climate change because they don't know, they can't really give any evidence for warming necessarily. Even sea level rise is a very contentious topic. I mean, I can send you to other videos, but the one that interested me once I kind of researched my way out of the climate change idea was Lord Monckton's breakdown of Al Gore's presentation. I thought that was quite good, but by now there's lots of videos that are kind of contra this idea. But the reason I mention all of that is because I think it's useful to kind of flag up the more obvious kind of corporate interventions in an area. Cornwall isn't far from Somerset, so I chose this little topic. Unfortunately, one of the problems with these meetings is that we only get 3 minutes per person. So, and as I'll mention later, we even had a contentious issue whereby counsellors were not expecting us to be there and having any time to speak whatsoever because it wasn't a council meeting. So it was really hard to get these things across to anybody. So I spoke on this lithium mining that was going on in Cornwall, which I thought was a problem. I'm not an expert on lithium by any means, but I'm not really keen on the idea of electric cars. I think that maybe there are certain batteries that could be used in a limited way for electric cars, but I think not in this case. So I was just giving my little spiel about that. And then after that we had Inigo give a short speech, but we managed to prolong it because it was quite impassioned and low-key the way he spoke, and he was just talking about resilience in a number of different ways and what the definition might be, and he was taking it as a kind of it was his kind of emotional response to everything that's gone on the last few years, and with all of the COVID type situations that have played out. So, and he was fairly impassioned, and he was talking about loss of freedom, censorship. He was talking about aerosol spraying as well, and geoengineering in regard to aerosol spraying, which we just found out was going on a lot longer than we realized. So that was that, and he kind of used somebody else's time to keep going with his speech, and then finished with a minute silence for the victims of this attack that happened in Stockport around that time. And even with that 1 minute silence, it's very strange because we had somebody on the left hand side of me, of the public area, who was vocally complaining that a member of the public couldn't ask for a minute's silence in a public meeting like a committee meeting. So it was pretty odd, that something as natural as that couldn't be included. So that was that. We didn't really know what the structure of the meeting would be, so we gave these speeches. And then what happened next was we got a presentation from a woman named Belle Deering, who is from Somerset Rivers Authority, That's time stamped at about 21 minutes. So the other talks took that long to get round to her presentation. Interestingly, she's not from Somerset, which is interesting for me anyway. And then she kind of follows up on all of this definition of resilience. I mean, going into the meeting, my personal feeling was that you know, we'd already had another meeting about that was named adaptation, right, which was kind of on the same theme as this. And I think this is what is happening with the council, and it's kind of coming, it's not totally their fault, but it's coming from central government, and they're copying all of this kind of the naming of things, and they're skirting around the issue because they want to put in place hard, you know, like regulations that would relate more closely and vocally to net zero, and they know that they're going to get a lot of opposition from the public with that. So I think that's why we've had this word adaptation thrown into a meeting last year, and now we've got resilience, and it's just a big cover, as far as I'm concerned, for the fact that they want to make changes that are really quite strong and hard line, and to do with traffic and the makeup and the town, what's going on in the town centre, really. So I think everybody who was there, I got the impression that most people there knew that this was kind of a cover for what they wanted to talk about. In fact, just to skip ahead, after giving a speech, I will come to this little speech again, but the counsellor at the end, time stamped just over on the hour mark of the video, she kind of says that you ain't supposed to be here, essentially, and that her little talk was about carbon neutrality. Again, there's a kind of skirt in the issue here. Carbon neutrality is a little bit easier to take than net zero, for example, and so that was one of her reasons to be there. So I'll get back to that later. So anyway, the Bell Deering presentation. So she's from Somerset Rivers Authority. She responds to Inigo's breakdown of resilience, as in the public resilience of the last few years, and she says this little quip, which is, it's not bouncing back but bouncing forward. And again, it's just needless critique, because they don't seem to be able to respond to the fact that the public is sick, physically sick, and there have been many deaths as a result of well, contentiously, vaccines and COVID, or whatever, however people perceive that. But let's be honest, I mean, nationally and locally, the last few years have been insane and incredibly stressful for a lot of people. I would say the majority of people. So I just thought that was strange that she would put that quip in, you know. So really her reason for being there, as far as I could glean, was to talk about flooding in Somerset. Now, I've only lived in Somerset, in this part of Somerset, for 2 years, but I always knew that there was flooding in Somerset, and particularly in Glastonbury, but I always felt that it was natural, and that with the regular maintenance of the land it wouldn't be much of a problem. But as we'll see when we get to Sandi Adams's comments, it's quite a difficult problem that they're presenting us with. So she talks about flooding, she talks about 10 risk areas, she talks about this would be in Somerset, and animal diseases is an issue. Why this would be an issue, I'm not quite sure. So there's an emergency plan, a flood plan put in place already that the Rivers Authority has been consulting on, apparently. And then when questioned, I can't remember if this was in dialogue, but anyway, I remember the comment, we don't respond but we fund certain things. So actually, if there is an issue with flooding and people need to be accommodated outside of their homes, or they need to be evacuated to another part of town or another part of the county, I thought that was a strange thing to say. We don't respond. So it's not the Rivers Authority responsibility to respond. That's understood. But also, by implication at least, I think that's strange, because it could mean that the council doesn't respond as well. And we fund certain things. Okay, so what are the things? Well, it turns out that they seem to be able to fund small shelters, and they can provide guidelines for people to use kettles, which the public found quite amusing. And she says have places that are accessible, but she didn't really go into detail about that. Then she said, then it's made clear that the council has responsibility to accommodate people displaced by flooding. So they do have the duty or the responsibility to do that, but not the Rivers Authority. So they just help with looking at what the priorities are and funding things that are perceived to be a problem. Funding to help people, and she said also they've got evacuation points all across the county, and she tells us there's none in Glastonbury, which I wasn't aware of. And then she says there are 3 places in Street. That might make sense, to be honest, because Street is higher than some of Glastonbury. And then she says we make sure there are chairs and there's a toilet in these evacuation points. So any preparal for any real environmental emergency comes down to some shelters, small shelters that have chairs and a toilet. And then after that she says there are possibly 80,000 homes at risk of flooding in this area. Now, again, I couldn't quite catch how many she meant across the whole county. I'm not sure how a few places in Street. I'm hoping that she meant more than that. But we've got 80,000 homes, so you could double that in terms of people, maybe triple it. Those are how many people that could possibly be at risk from flooding. So there's a grey area there. Like, are they going to be accommodated at evacuation points that she's talking about? The idea is that they will easily be accommodated, but that's a moot point, I would imagine. Okay, so that's that really. So that's her presentation. That goes on from 21 minutes to 49 minutes, and then an interesting kind of interruption occurs because Sandi's questioning her a little bit and talking about her own experience. As she's winding up the presentation, the other lady, Sandi, kind of joins in the discussion. She talks about the flooding, the previous flooding in 2014. And talking about Boroughbridge, where she says there was no help from anyone from the council, and the only people that actually helped at the last minute were a Sikh organisation, and I don't think they were from the area, they were from outside the area. And she says no one helped us at all, and she said the reason it happened was the Environment Agency hadn't dredged the reens, which are the areas around all the fields where the water goes. So the water's not getting out of the fields because things have purposely been kept that way, and so the Environment Agency isn't doing its job. And I would just add that I feel that that's the point, unfortunately. At least up to now, and until we see evidence to the contrary. The Environment Agency is there to create flooding, I would say, at least partially. I wouldn't be worried about saying something like that. She also mentions Policy 6 of the Environment Agency. And then she also speaks about the fact that the flooding is allowing a land grab, and it's to stop farming. All of these points the lady from the Rivers Authority has no answer for. She feels that is something that an expert would have to respond to. So it's all quite interesting. There's a lot of tension really by the time we get to kind of an hour in, and then one of the councillors, Nik Cook, kind of joins in on top of this kind of idea of why is the Environment Agency so ineffective. There's more talk about that. And then by the time we get to the hour, I want to come back to this point. You know, the councillor who I forget her name, but she's in charge of net zero and climate change and talking about environmental issues. She says to the people who have come that this is a committee meeting. It's not a public event. They've not done anything to stop us coming, because, you know, there were chairs laid out already and we just took them essentially and sat down. But it's a committee meeting, it's not a council meeting, so there's no obligation for the council to accommodate the public at that event. And then she says finally, it's not a conversation. And then she makes clear, as I already said, that she was there. One of the things she was there to do was to talk about carbon neutrality. So all this is quite fascinating. They're using our money to have semi-private committee meetings where they are going to talk about net zero essentially, and we're not allowed in that. We're not allowed in that conversation. So, you know, it's kind of strange. I want to get some more input from perhaps other members of the public about this, and we are going to dialogue with people about geoengineering, because I think that perhaps 10 years ago, you know, we could be speaking about geoengineering and it would be been imagined as a kind of a fringe topic, or, you know, conspiracy theory. But I think it's a real reality for people now. They're really looking into these things and considering them. So if anybody wants to look into that, I'll be happy to interview people just to see what the information is. I know we've got one person, Tess, is going to talk to me briefly about this, because the lady that spoke at that meeting right on the hour mark that I've already mentioned, was there. She was polite enough to solicit emails from the public. Now, I didn't take her up on that, even though I spoke at the meeting, but as it so happens, Tess did so, and she submitted a load of evidence, a load of research about evidence for geoengineering, and we're going to update you guys with what's going on with that, because she did get some feedback later on, so we'll see how that goes. That's pretty much everything to do with the commentary for the first video on the 5th of September. We're going to upload, I'm going to give you some audio of that geoengineering research that I just mentioned, and then after that we're going to upload the town council meetings for September and October, and I hope you'll take a look at them. I'll see you soon. Bye.